4 or 5 years. I've been blessed with the honor of visiting Karbala. And just like it is with Muharram, when you evolve and you grow every Muharram, every time I go back to the Imam, I go back as a new person, as a grown person. I have different things to request from him for myself. I have different conversations with the Imam all the time. I think now it's come to a point where, subhanallah, I mean, it was only 5-6 years ago where I never even knew what Karbala smelled like, but now it's got to a point where when I go there, it's so familiar to me that, especially when it's Arba'in, I try to not do ziyarah as much to allow the millions to experience their own ziyarah, because I feel like it's my home. And I feel like the Imam knows that I'm there, and he knows that I've come. And it's like the Imam is telling me, I can see you, I know you're there, and I appreciate you coming, and I don't feel obliged to do the actual ziyarah every day to allow the other ziwar to do their ziyarah, because it's like my home. Alhamdulillah, it's got to a point where when I get to Karbala, it's not like a feeling where I've been deprived for so long and I've finally seen the shrine. It's more of a feeling of coming back home and seeing that familiar shrine for the once again, and being there to do the work of the Imam. Alhamdulillah, I remember last Arba'in when we went for filming for Ahl Bayt TV, and it was very different because we were doing the work of the Imam. It wasn't like, even though we even sacrificed many opportunities to do ziyarah, but it was okay because we were there working for the Imam, and it genuinely felt like we were the Ansar, or alongside the Ansar, or serving the or something in that category of serving the Imam. And it's amazing because we are doing his duty, but you always kind of get these experiences and these moments in Karbala that it's like the Imam is telling you, thank you for the work you're doing. I appreciate the work that you're doing. I mean, I've had many experiences of once, my second ziyarah, I still remember my farewell to the shrine was kissing the dome of Imam Hussein, and that kind of just came out of nowhere. I remember another time where we went to do our final ziyarah a few years later, and the doors were closed, but I managed to speak to one of the workers of the shrine, and he let us inside where the dharih was, and it was completely empty, and we got the shrine of Imam Hussein all to ourselves. When we were filming for Ahl Bayt TV last year, I remember we got chances to go onto the roof to film, and I got a chance to film the Muwaqib as they were entering the actual shrine. And I don't see these things as coincidences. I see it as like a privilege from the Imam. The Imam is telling you, I know what you're doing. I'm thankful for that for that I'm doing. I'm thankful for that work you're doing. I'm going to show you that I appreciate what you're doing. Like I said, the Imam is living for me, and whenever I go there, I can feel his appreciation. And that is something that I can, no matter what I do or what I say, I can never be thankful enough. The lessons I take from, or try to take from the story of Ashura, are the ones that all of us try to take from that day: patience, selflessness, love, sacrifice, brotherhood, all of these values and virtues that are in that day. But I think the most important thing is the humility and the submission to God and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And underneath that is a loyalty to Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Definitely, I would say that the fact that we come back every year and we mourn the same story, we are, even if subconsciously, we are taking these lessons on board in our lives. And every day, for example, if I have the feeling or the desire to backbite, for example, and suddenly I think, don't do it. That is automatically a story I've learned from Ashura. If I want to oppress someone, but something inside tells me don't do it, that's a story I've learned from Ashura. If I want to be humble or selfless, These are stories that lessons that I've learned from Ashura. There's even been times in my life where I've had to be very, very selfless. And straight away, I remember that story of Imam Abbas salam, and when he had the water in his hands and he threw it away. And it's like that story just plays in my mind, and there's a voice in my head telling myself, you say you love Abbas, you say you love the story, and now the opportunity presents itself to you. What are you going to do? So automatically, you have to submit. I think it's sad that so many people, they're the first people to do majalis and the first people to cry for Imam Hussein, the first people to do martyr for Imam Hussein alayhi salam, but they don't take the lessons on board from Imam Hussein alayhi salam. It's like Imam Hussein alayhi salam is for the mosque, but outside the mosque they have their own kind of lives and values that they abide by, which are completely separate from the lessons of Imam Hussein alayhi salam and what was learned on that day. So me personally, I always tell myself in anything that I do in life, whatever it may be, I always tell myself, there's only one truth. There's only one right thing to do. When you're given options, there's only one right thing to do. And I always, I take my entire code of character, my entire code of living, whatever, I define what's right and wrong by the day of Ashura. And I always tell myself, not that I'm saying that I'm perfect, we are all imperfect. We've all got our imperfections and our sins, and I'm a sinner. But I would say that I try, inshallah, in terms of the way I live my life, to take from that story of Ashura and live my life accordingly. To explain the story of Imam Hussein alayhi salam to a non-Muslim, I think that when you look at the way non-Muslims are exposed to Imam Hussein alayhi salam, especially with Reverts, and the show of course is called Reborn, and I'm sure you hear many stories of how people were exposed to Imam Hussein alayhi salam, but interestingly, no one is exposed to Imam Hussein alayhi salam the same way. There are people that they see, they've seen a picture of the millions visiting the shrine and they just become Muslim straight away. There are people that they hear the story of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, but they need to study and research and look into it for years before they finally accept Islam. Not that the one who hears the story of Imam Hussein alayhi salam has to become Muslim, but it's interesting to see that everyone is introduced to Imam Hussein alayhi salam in a different way. I've seen people that see the commemoration of Imam, the martyr, the crying, the lamenting, and they're intrigued by it. They're brought closer to it. I've seen people who are introduced to Imam Hussein alayhi salam through these billboards that you have, Who is Hussein, and the 10th Day, and many other Stand for Hussein in Norway. All of these great organizations that are doing amazing work trying to put forward the message of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. But one thing I found so amazing, especially recently when I've alhamdulillah traveled to a lot of places, I've seen Imam Hussein alayhi salam in the furthest reaches of the world where you never expect him to be. I've seen him in a small tiny mosque in the ghetto of Barcelona. I've seen Imam Hussein alayhi salam in the most dangerous ghetto of Southeast Washington. And I see people that are inspired by Imam Hussein alayhi salam in all these areas. So I would say, if I were to tell a non-Muslim about Imam Hussein alayhi salam, I would tell them that Imam Hussein stood up for everyone. He stood up for the innocent, and he stood up against the face of injustice and tyranny. He brought his women with him, he brought his children with him, and he sacrificed them all for the greater good. As Imam Hussein alayhi salam says, to be honest with you, the one quote I would give them is the quote where he says, even if you do not believe in God in this world, at least be a free man. That's, I think, what I would tell anyone who asks me about the story of Imam Hussein alayhi salam.